For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
14 years ago today, India faced one of its deadliest terrorist attacks in the country. 164 people, including foreigners, were killed in this simultaneous six-place terrorist attack that took place in Mumbai, which is better known as 26/11 attack. So many years later, what are the lessons that have been learnt and what actually went wrong at that point in time is the topic of this week's Ask Nitin. I'm Nitin Gokhale. So what exactly happened during those 3 days from 26th November to 29th November 2008? As we all know by now, the attack, colloquially known as 26/11 attack in Mumbai, was launched by Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists, a group of 10 well-armed, well-trained, radicalized and completely indoctrinated terrorists who came by the way of sea through a boat from Karachi to Mumbai, and then launched attacks at 6 places simultaneously in India's commercial capital, Mumbai. 164 people were dead at the end of it. That included one NSG commando, the major who was leading one of the commando groups in the one of the sites there, Major Sandeep Unnikrishnan, several foreigners, and of course the police officers, 3 senior police officers, plus a constable who actually caught one of those 10 terrorists alive, Tukaram Omble, who emerged as the real hero of that battle which lasted for 3 days. Of course, everything is well known. Movies have been made, documentaries have been made, how 5-star hotels like Taj and Oberoi were attacked. The Nariman House, which is a Jew or a Jewish facility, was under siege, and how the Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminal or the Victoria Terminus, the old name of the train terminus station in Mumbai, one of the 2 train terminus stations in Mumbai, South Mumbai, was under attack. Several people, as I said, 164 people were killed at the end of it. 9 of those terrorists were also eliminated finally, and one of them, Ajmal Kasab, was caught alive thanks to the bravery of Constable Tukaram Omble, who caught him as he was trying to flee in a car along with his other terrorist colleagues. All these are very well-known facts, but just to recap, I thought I'll just recount what exactly happened. It was a horror which was in our drawing rooms live for 3 continuous days. It was perhaps the most televised terrorist attack after the 9/11 spectacle in US, which saw the terrorists attacking the World Trade Center and the Pentagon with hijacked planes. Again, that is a well-known terrorist attack. Something similar was attempted in Kenya by terrorists later. But Mumbai remains the template of an urban attack or terrorist attack on urban center, thriving urban center, and how the law enforcement authorities, intelligence inputs can never be adequate to prevent such attacks. So what really went wrong is the question. There are, of course, several questions about how the media covered it, especially Indian broadcast media. I was then part of NDTV, a leading broadcaster at that point in time. And there were several questions raised on how the media played its part in abetting and also creating panic when what was needed was real calm and assurance and reassurance for the people. But that was not to be, because it was the first time for everyone, including the politicians, the authorities, the intelligence agencies, law enforcement, police, and the NSG commandos. It was the first of its kind terrorist attack that they were facing, where there were simultaneous attacks across the metropolis of Mumbai. But there have been postmortems after that, of course, and several reports have come out Several people have inquired. There have been official inquiries. There have been unofficial probes by journalists and commentators. There have been documentaries made, as I said. But two significant reports that one must refer to come to a conclusion what exactly went wrong. One is, of course, the high-level inquiry committee that was constituted by the Maharashtra government, which had a former deputy NSA, R.D. Pradhan, and former IPS officer, later one of the most prominent RNAW, or Research and Analysis Wing officers, Mr. V. Balachandran, who probed the attack and also the response and the circumstances under which these attacks took place, what events led to these attacks, and how intelligence reports that were provided or that were accessed by the state police were not adequately acted upon. All these reports, all these points have come out in that report. It's called the Pradhan Committee Report, or the High Level Inquiry Committee. And there is an interesting sort of inquiry or piecing together of the events was done by the US Senate Committee on Homeland Security, which is a long, detailed report. It's available. We are showing you on the screen. That report is available on the internet. And it has several points that are worth repeating and worth acting upon for all law enforcement agencies, anti-terrorist squads, anti-terrorist agencies across the world. So first, let us look at what the High-Level Inquiry Committee said of Mr. Pradhan and Mr. Balachandran. They concluded that there were 3 specific intelligence reports that had come starting 2006. Remember, this attack took place in 2008. The last of those specific warnings or intelligence was received sometime 2 months before the actual attack took place. And the intelligence inputs had specifically said that 5-star properties like Taj and Oberoi could be targets by terrorists for launching an attack or mounting an attack. There was no specific intelligence on seaborne terrorists, that they were going to come from sea and launch an attack, but there was a clear indication that these 5-star properties would be under attack by terrorists who had done a surveillance earlier. As we know, how Hadley, the terrorist who was a half Pakistani, actually also had surveyed and filmed many of these locations to be given to the LET. So that's an interesting case again, so these warnings were ignored or were not acted upon completely. Although the committee says that there was half-hearted attempts to implement some of these measures that were suggested to secure these places. The sum and substance of all this was that all these intelligence reports that came in, they came in bits and pieces at different times. There was no proper assessment and collation of these intelligence inputs, and therefore no proper conclusion could be drawn by the authorities. Although the Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of that zone had visited these 5-star properties, had spoken to the management, had told them what they should be doing and what measures they should be taking to prevent such a terrorist attack. But a kind of a picket that was put up in front of the Taj Hotel was withdrawn inexplicably because the attack did not take place as mentioned. So many lapses have been pointed out. There have been the points that have been made about how intelligence inputs are mechanically forwarded without any assessment done or analysis done. How the Mumbai police responded very well right at the beginning when calls started coming in, panic calls started coming in first from the Leopold Cafe, which was attacked, and then from these various other locations that I mentioned earlier. And there were some more than 10,000 calls received by the control room, and the police was completely incapable of handling such a traffic. The wireless telecommunication came under pressure, came under strain. It couldn't cope up. and the Mumbai police, which was trained for law and order duties. They had lathis with them, they had riot gear with them, but they didn't have sophisticated AK-47s or hand grenades or bulletproof jackets even. Some of the jackets that the Mumbai police had were of 1993 vintage, weighing something like 10 to 12 kgs. So nobody was willing to use those jackets. And as we know, a panic set in after the initial response, which was very good. And had it not been for bravery of bare-handed bravery of Tukaram Omble, of soldier turned police constable, then nobody would have believed that this attack was planned, planned and conceptualized in Pakistan by the Lashkar-e-Taiba, along with the intelligence agencies of Pakistan, especially the ISI, Inter-Services Intelligence, because Omble caught Ajmal Kasab alive. As I mentioned, he did not have a gun with him or a sidearm with him, and yet he caught him, took the bullets right in his chest, and of course died in the line of duty. But it was because of his bravery that the entire plot was unraveled. But coming back to the committee's report, it had concluded that several measures had to be taken to make sure that intelligence that comes in is acted upon. The police needs to have special counter-terrorism squads or anti-terrorism squads. Although there is an ATS in Mumbai or in Maharashtra, but it was not very well equipped, or it was not part of the counter-terrorist operations in Mumbai. There was also multiplicity of agencies that were trying to counter the attacks. There was no cohesion, there was no central control room. All that came up. Also, we will talk about the role of the media and why the media also should have learned, and I am sure has learned lessons from that event, which, as I said, was the largest televised event in probably Indian subcontinent's history, if not the history of the world. But coming to the US Senate Committee on Homeland Security report, it has actually described this attack as sophisticated, simultaneous and deadly in its report. Also, they have spoken about very clearly that how the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the ISI recruited, trained, funded, indoctrinated and radicalized these terrorists who were willing to lay down their life. As we know, finally they were killed. Ajmal Kasab was of course hanged after due trial in the Indian judicial system. And the role of the LET and ISI came to the fore, and the US committee has acknowledged that it is most of these terrorist attacks in that decade and later have links to Pakistan or Pakistani origin terrorists. So they also mentioned and pointed out that cutting edge technology of that time, I mean, of course, technology has moved on. There's much more sophisticated technology, improved technology from what was available in 2008. But they've spoken about how Google Maps, which was new that time, was used for surveillance and for pinpointing the targets and giving those targets to these terrorists who had come from Pakistan, who had no clue of where these targets were. But because they had Google Maps, they could reach those targets effortlessly. They used BlackBerry phones. BlackBerry phones are more or less extinct now. The BlackBerry phones were supposed to be secure. They were supposed to be phones that were not, nobody was able to break into them or tap them. So they used that. They used VPN technology for communicating with their handlers back in Karachi. And of course, all this has been documented. So everything has been documented, and yet India was left vulnerable, had not retaliated at that point in time. It seemed that war was inevitable between India and Pakistan at that point in time. But for some reason, India held back. India did not really retaliate against Pakistan in the way a lot of people desired. And even today, ask that question, why there was no retaliation from India. The National Security Advisor of that point in time, later, who was National Security Advisor, Shiv Shankar Menon, in his book, Choices, has spoken about why this decision was taken that India should not attack Pakistan because this terrorist attack had emanated from Pakistan. He was then the Foreign Secretary, of course. The National Security Advisor at that point in time was M.K. Narayanan, and the Prime Minister was Dr. Manmohan Singh. The UPA one was in power that time, and it was concluded apparently in the cabinet that it is not commensurate with the kind of thing that has happened. It is not going to get results for India if India attacks Pakistan. It is going to get into a spiral if India attacks Pakistan on the basis of this terrorist attack. There was a question asked by one of our viewers that why there was no attack really by or retaliation by India. So Shiv Shankar Menon has spoken about it. He said he was in favor of carrying out some punitive strike on terrorist camps in Pakistan. The Air Force was asked for, Indian Air Force was asked for an option which was given, but Prime Minister Manmohan Singh held back that decision and said there will be no retaliation. So that's going to be a forever mystery, despite what Shiv Shankar Menon has written, and it will remain a kind of a blot on India's security establishment that it did not take punitive action, which will remain. And then within a couple of years, India started again talking to Pakistan. So that was the approach which has not been liked. But mind you, the Indian voter re-elected the UPA government in 2009, despite this so-called failure of not retaliating against Pakistan. So again, it's a mystery why Indian voter voted for the UPA back in power in 2009. But coming back to the attack itself and coming back to the role of the media, look, the spectacle of buildings burning, terrorists hiding in big hotels which nobody knew where they were, and getting it live is always something that gets eyeballs. So the Indian broadcast media, which was at its zenith at that point in time, 10 years in the making, we had started 24-hour news networks in India in 1998-99, and in 2008 it was right at the top of the mind space of the Indian media consumer, and therefore it became a kind of a competition between media, who will get who first, and the authorities also bungled. Mind you, I'm not defending the authorities or the media, I'm just giving you factual events as they happened really. So if you look back and see when Home Minister Shivraj Patil, Union Home Minister Shivraj Patil, when he landed in Mumbai with a group of NSG commandos, over 200 of them, at the Mumbai airport, he gave a bite, as we call, a kind of a quote on camera to the assembled camera people, that we've got these NSG commandos with us, they will take care of the attack and we're going to get things under control. There was no need for him to say that, because it was just, the operation was just beginning, the counter-terrorist operation was just beginning, and there was no clarity how many people were there. This is early morning on 27th of November. Then the then Director General of NSG also brought in one more batch of NSG commandos. Again, he said we are going to bring things under control. They were all on TV immediately after landing, no need. But that was how what I call seduction of television cameras occurs. And therefore, subsequently, many of the people or figures in authority actually came onto the on the television screen. There was the CNC, Western Naval Command, who spoke about how sophisticated and well-trained the terrorists were, and how the Marcos, the Marine commandos, came up against these highly trained and highly motivated trained terrorists. There was no need for him to say that in the middle of this attack, the Mumbai police and the Maharashtra police said that they have caught a terrorist alive. It was giving away a surprise or giving away one of the operations. That was not needed. The Home Minister of Maharashtra, then Home Minister of Maharashtra, R.R. Patil, came onto the camera and said, "बड़े-बड़े शहरों में छोटी-छोटी घटनाएं होती रहती है. These small incidents do happen in big cities," is what he said. When it was such a big incident, he was actually trivializing that incident. there was this spectacle of film stars and ministers going and sort of touring the terrorist attack spots as if there was a tourism going on. And there was the spectacle of many of these people coming onto the media and talking in different tones and tenor and different language and giving different information which was contradictory to each other. So the lesson that was learned, of course, the media is guilty of pushing everybody, pushing their mics in their face and asking for these quotes and bites. I was in Delhi that time. I did not go to Mumbai. So I must confess that I was not part of that rat race there. But certainly we were tapping our sources, intelligence people, asking where these information was available, why was the attack not been prevented, because if information was available, why nobody took cognizance of it. All those questions were asked during the attack itself and later. But the fact is, this kind of an attack was a first of its kind event, and therefore people in the authority, people in the media and the common people, they were all at sea about how to deal with this. In retrospect, one can say the authorities could have just drawn a line somewhere in front of these hotels and said, you can't go beyond this, because you then they keep giving live pictures. It keeps adding to the panic. It keeps adding to, and the handlers in Pakistan were getting information on Indian television about where these terrorists were attacking, where they were, who was caught, who was not caught. So actually, everything was in chaos. So ultimately, the government constituted a committee to look into how the media coverage should be handled, who should handle it, and then it was concluded that there should be a single point communication center. There should be no multiple voices speaking at the same time for the same event. All those recommendations have come up. They are available, and the television channels were called in by the government. They were given these instructions. The regulatory authority or some of the industry bodies also came up with some of the guidelines for coverage of terrorist attacks. But the proof of the pudding is always in eating. And subsequently, when the attack in Gurdaspur or in Pathankot took place, there were again some of these mistakes were repeated in 2015 and 16. So we still go through that circle of blame game. Who could have prevented it, who could have attacked the terrorists, all that happens. But the fact is, the template of the Mumbai attack has been tried elsewhere, but there has been real tragedy for the families of the victims. They were, as I said, foreigners, they were Israelis, they were Americans, and they were ordinary people in the Mumbai suburbs, Mumbai train stations, also hotel staff. Everyone suffered, and that scar of that attack will always remain on India's psyche in that sense. But speaking to some of the NSG commandos, the commanders, one now learns that several lessons have been imbibed, the best practices have been now honed, and that attack led to several reforms in a way in India's security system. NSG now has regional hubs. There are anti-terrorist squads that states have come up with. There is better coordination amongst intelligence agencies, and there is always now a process of elimination, that if this information has come, can this be discounted, can this be acted upon? All this happens in a collegiate manner. The strengthening of the multi-agency center has taken place over these last 14 years. And thankfully, I mean, one must say touch wood at this point in time, that after 2013, after 2014, there have been no major terrorist attacks except the Pathankot attack, which was of course prevented, and then the Gurdaspur attack in Punjab, and those incidents that take place in Kashmir. Clearly, India's security system has been tightened. Intelligence agencies are now getting more proactive, have got more proactive, and the others who have to take the countermeasures against terrorists are also more and more effective from what they were in those years in the 2000s. So clearly, as we remember the victims and pray for their departed souls, we must also look back and say that this attack woke India up in a way and also told the world that India is a victim of terrorism, and of course we lost so many lives there. So there were two questions from our viewers in a written form. One, of course, I have already answered. Why didn't India retaliate after the attack? Aditi Dhungana has asked this question. Why there was no action against them by Indian government, and why no retaliation or action till date? She has asked. I have already explained that in the middle of my presentation. There was another question from Jaideep Gadhvi, who said recently India held a conference on no money for terror in Mumbai. The next one, I believe, is to be held in Delhi. Can you please summarize in the brief India's efforts on that front? Actually, this conference was held in Delhi, and it was the conference was an international conference where the ways and means to prevent money, either laundered or direct money to be used for terror, should be prevented. It's a different subject altogether. We could have a separate conversation on that. But the fact is that terrorism is fueled by narco money, it is fueled by money laundering, it is fueled by nation states and non-state actors. And we know how Pakistan plays a big part in terrorism against India. So all these are the questions that were raised that time. Partly some of them have been answered. Others we will continue to search for answers. But yes, a lot of improvement in how India reacts to terrorist attacks. So for instance, in Pathankot, despite the chaos in the initial period, I think finally the terrorists were eliminated and they were not allowed to damage anything, any property or any high-tech equipment, missiles or aircraft in the Pathankot airbase. They were confined to an area of 250 meters by 250 meters finally, and they were eliminated. But of course, India lost a couple of officers there of the bomb squad and 6 men from the Defence Services Corps, which guards military installations. All that again is well documented. But the fact is, Mumbai attack or 26/11 attack will remain as a landmark event in the long history of terrorist attacks in India. And therefore, on its 14th anniversary, I thought I'll just recap some of those events and also recall what lessons have been learned and what implementation of those lessons has taken place. That's all I have this week. Do keep watching StratNews Global, and of course keep sending feedback and suggestions. I will come back with fresh topics and something that engages you. I wish more of you will join me on video, but if this is not going to happen, then maybe we will have to think of a different format. I understand people are busy with their own jobs and their own livelihood earning that they have to do, the day jobs that they have. But it would be interesting to engage with some of our viewers and answer their queries. But we'll come to that bridge and we'll cross it when we come to that bridge. For the moment, it's goodbye.